Forgot about the part where I talk into this thing and you hear me. Hey, everybody. We're going live today again to record the podcast. And I'm going to screw the base of this all the way on because it's flopping around. Flopping around is not good. Anyway, I did not record Monday's podcast live because it was an interview and I had pre-recorded it. And it was going to be like 20 minutes of me going blah, blah, blah and edit. But today I have a fun one. I'm just getting everything up here ready to go. I see we have somebody on. There may be a little more room than usual on this one. My mic is like tilty. Oh, I see why. Okay, there we go. Anyway, there may be room for some interaction on this one. We'll see. And I have my trusty fizzy water. I am like totally stressing out because of this situation right here. This is the pile of papers that I need to work through today. So they're no longer on my desk and in my way. I've been like looking at them in the background of all my things. But there was a request over on MeWe about going through my tools. And so I thought, well, that'll be fun because I've been doing these podcasts live. And we have a visual aid today. Let me show you. We're going to go through this today. Oh, gosh, that weighed a lot. Anyway. But I think with that, I better just get my podcast started. That mic is kicking my butt. Why? I'm going to go through my tool bag today. It's going to be fun. And you guys may laugh at what's in there. And the one thing that I'm pretty sure there are some things that should be in there that are not because we've been building hydroponics in front of my house. And my guess is some really important tools are out there, and I'd be really pissed off if I grabbed my bag and they were out there and then I drove to Nashville to work on the duplex. But let's get the show on the road, right? Well, welcome everybody to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you want to live on your terms. Today is Wednesday, April 29th, 2020, and this is episode 301 of Living Free in Tennessee. And I realized after Monday's episode, I made zero amount of big deal about the fact it was episode 300. In fact, I forgot to mention the day, and I didn't mention the episode number either. So I'll probably go out and celebrate episode 300 right after we record 301 because it's kind of a benchmark for me. I've been doing 3 episodes a week since about, I guess, January, February last year. And we have kept up this pace even through like all the ups and downs and Christmas roasting and being out of town and unfortunate personal life changes, and it's all kept going, and I'm kind of proud of that. So we've made episode 300, and it's a Wednesday show. It's 301, this show, but I love Wednesdays because they're a bit more hands-on, and today it's going to be really, really hands-on because I had a request through MeWe to just about like what tools do I have on the homestead, and it was motivated by one of the listeners who's active over in the MeWe group, who was kind of talking about starting to learn carpentry and some of these other things that her husband usually does, and no offense to him, but she wants to work on stuff. And then we got to talking about just kind of what tools we want to have. And the reason I'm laughing, guys, is this is on YouTube Live, and somebody just tricked me and said, "Who's looking through the window behind you?" There's a screen behind me. On that note, if you do want to see what it's like to record a podcast live, I do live stream the Monday and Wednesday recordings usually, although this week, Monday was an interview show, so I did not live stream that. But I am live streaming today on YouTube. If I make a mistake on YouTube, you just see me make a terrible mistake, and then I edit it in. So you can just kind of see the sausage being made. So that's part of the fun of the YouTube live stream. So far, I haven't cussed, but I got really close once when I screwed up like 3 times in a row, and I got really mad at my fleece and threw it on the ground and stuff. Anyway, so today, I am going to share with you what's in my tool bag, not all the tools on the hauler. I will actually do another follow-up to this where we go through the power tools I have and how I've learned how to use them and why I've chosen those particular power tools. There is one power tool in my tool bag that I just would not leave home without. Also, last week's Holler Hat Wednesday was not the Holler Hat. I just asked you where did she go and what she's doing. The Holler Hat is on vacation on a photo shoot, getting some nice pictures made. And so I don't have her here right now. And so I put a picture of cheese. So last week, the Holler Hat was making cheddar cheese. This week, we're going to skip Holler Hat Wednesday, and we should be back on schedule next week with something other than somewhere in the holler where we have been for the last 7 weeks, right? Thursday, which is tomorrow at noon, I'm doing the final in the April weekly series of webinars at noon Central, and it's going to be a property walk at the Holler Homestead. I'm going to show you any wild plants that I find. I'm going to, and then talk about them a little bit and how I identify them, and just show you the various parts of the Holler Homestead. We are limited by the Wi-Fi. There's a giant antenna out in front of my house, and up on that antenna is a Wi-Fi access transmitting my Wi-Fi. And there's another one down the hill on my pump house that catches that signal and repeats it. Okay, so I'm starting to have pretty good Wi-Fi coverage in the Holler Homestead, but I can't go everywhere. So I'll show you what I can. I'm going to show you mistakes and things I've learned about that, as well as just some of the projects we have underway, including the front hydroponic system, which we talked about in detail on last week's webinar. After April, we're going to drop down to one webinar a month. And in May, as promised, we're going to have Joshua Sloan on to talk about how to dial in your Google My Business to better optimize search engine results in your area. One of the cool things about Google My Business is when you're set up right and you're using it right, it can make it so when people are searching for you, that you end up with, you know, people close by finding you. For my business, the coffee roasting business, it's not as cool because people near me don't want to pay shipping, right? They want to pick it up, and I don't have a way for them to do that on my website. Perhaps I should change that. I don't know. But, you know, I have more of a national focus, and you can adjust it for those kinds of things as well. Joshua will be on. It was originally scheduled for May 21st. I think I'm going to bring it 1 week earlier, though, because I just had an appointment scheduled right over the top of that workshop, of course. And it's the only day, it's a doctor's appointment. It's the only day I can see the doctor. And right now, with all the shutdowns, now you just got to take your doctor's appointments where you can find them. So that is the webinar this week. To see the webinar, if you are a member, it's free to you. You just log into the membership portal. In the welcome letter, it says, hey, welcome to the portal. This is your landing page. There's a link. Click on that link tomorrow around noon. It'll launch a Zoom webinar, and it'll be the link that brings you into the property. The spring workshop was supposed to happen last weekend. And I was as tired on Monday this week as I usually am after the spring workshop, for no good reason, actually, because I didn't do a spring workshop. We've moved it to June 11th through 13th. I have 5 seats open because there were 5 people who can't make it because we moved it. So if you would like to come to the spring workshop, just go to livingfreeintennessee.com, click on workshop, and there is a registration button there. With that, it's time for the first segment in today's show, Stump the Sauce. And this is actually a follow-up on a Stump the Sauce of a few weeks ago. Somebody asked how I brew my ideal cup of coffee. And then Brian Norton, my coffee roasting / plant growing buddy in Seattle, who is on the front lines of making as much side hustle money as he can, shot me via text message an audio file. And so I'm going to play that audio file for you now about his ideal cup of coffee. And this is where the live stream, who is making fun of me for boogers, thanks, David, for trying to make me laugh. I need to go grab that audio file because this is how I go. I record and then I cut things in as we go. And as it turns out, it's on my phone. I forgot it was on my phone and not on my computer. So be right back, guys. Basically, I've never been so glad that I'm actually wearing pants while recording, a live video as I was at this very moment. So about the worst way you can send me information that needs to endure beyond the moment you send it to me is text message. But Brian, when he sent this to me, was driving and didn't, he just texted it. He recorded it on his phone. and then texted it to me. So best way for me to find it is to search for Brian. And then, of course, it won't come up. So what I'm going to do is pretend like I have just dropped that in, because you guys are going to get bored watching me filter through a gajillion text messages for this. Okay. So this is what I do on the editing software, guys. If you have a podcast, this is what you do. You put a new track in on GarageBand, and you drop the audio file in there. For me to know where that's going to go, I put a little gap to reset my starting point, and then I will transition right back in to the podcast. Well, that sounds like a really tasty cup of coffee from Brian. You know, one of the things I've liked about working with Brian and getting to know him is that it's just so nice to have a fellow coffee roaster to talk to, and he knows so much more about coffee than I do. So I'm learning from that dude every single day. Next segment is what's up in the garden. And what's up is it's raining cats and dogs outside. Literally, like I've never seen spring rain like this. It rained a lot last year. I'm actually kind of glad the spring workshop moved. You know, not from a logistics standpoint, but from a weather standpoint, we got some serious rain. And I did not have a bunch of people who were trying to camp in mud. And I'm sure that by June we'll be through this. But it's raining like crazy, which is great for germination, not so great for me getting all my seeds in. So I'm pushing really hard this week to make sure all the seeds are in the ground for the first round of the garden. Just had a talk with Tactical Redneck about putting in a new garden plot over behind base camp and using the rototiller to till up the ground and put some rabbit poo in there and make it so it's pretty easy to maintain, and then do about 100 yellow squash plants. Why 100? I lose my 3 or 4 summer yellow squash plants every year. And as I've gotten into researching the squash vine borers and the squash bugs that get them every year, I've come to the realization that why the other local farmers often have squash all summer long that I can buy from them is they have lots of plants. And so what happens, and I think the reason there hasn't been as much targeted organic focus on dealing with squash vine borers and squash bugs, which are the bane of my existence. And I think they're the bane of my buddy David's existence too, because I think he also likes yellow squash. They lose some plants. They'll lose a whole section of their field, but they have a field of squash. So we're gonna test this theory. I'm gonna get some more seeds. We're gonna plant a boat ton of squash over way far away from my house and see how it goes. And maybe I'll get lucky this year and have more than like 2 squash per plant before the stupid plants die, which is what happens every year to me. So that's an experiment we're doing, and I'll let you know about that. And then other than that, the hydro system's in and running. I've been dialing in the nutrients all morning. I think we have it pretty much nailed. And as usual, I have chickens wreaking havoc. I have 3 chickens left and all ducks. My ducks are not as hard on my garden as the chickens are, but every time a chicken gets in there, they take a dust bath on something I like, and that's why I only have 3 chickens. With that, guys, it is time for the main topic of today's show, Nicole's tools. So, ladies, yes, you can. I saw a discussion about somebody online who's, a woman and wants to work on some carpentry projects around the house. And I think a lot of women, when we're growing up, are not taught some of the basic carpentry skills you would be taught if you were helping your dad put decks in and other things like that. Just traditionally, it's a thing. And then there's a lot of hesitation to start things you don't know how to do. Just like almost everybody I talk to who wants to start canning is worried about poisoning their family, and they're not quite sure how to get started. And so it's kind of freaky because it's the great unknown. And then when you have somebody else in the house living with you who's good at that stuff, why bother learning, right? Well, sometimes the reason you bother learning is that 2 sets of hands are better than 1, or you just want to, or the thing you want is not a priority to the other person and you don't want to have to nag them, right? Now, caution, you starting to build your own stuff can be perceived as nagging. So maybe make sure you communicate you're doing this and why you're doing it, and not to get them to do the thing, but because you want to learn how to do the thing. YouTube University, by the way, is a great resource. Now, I was lucky because every time I asked my dad to show me how to do things, he did. And in college, my college boyfriend was a carpenter and he showed me how to do some things. And then when I moved to Portland, Oregon, I bought a house that it turned out needed a lot of work, including a complete overhaul of some systems that most people don't get into, like electrical wiring. And at that time, you were able to work on your house without pulling a permit if you did the work. And I didn't have a lot of money to pay somebody or to pay for a permit. So I replaced knob and tube wiring with Romex. Okay. So I've been lucky in that my friends are empowering people. And along that journey, there have been people who have known how to do things who show me, like my dad or my buddy Kurt, or pretty much anybody who I see with a carpentry tool shows me. You know what I don't know how to do, guys? Frame walls. I've sort of started learning a little bit more about framing, but in general, there are some things I don't know how to do. My finished carpentry work is not awesome, and I think it boils down to measuring. I'm pretty good at measuring drywall and getting the hole for the plug in the right place, but I don't love doing drywall. And then mud work is like the bane of my existence. But I've learned how to do a lot of different things, and along the way, I've figured out that having the right tool is super, super helpful. That doesn't mean you should blame the lack of having the right tool for shoddy work, but having tools is helpful. And because I have rentals, I end up needing to do things like replace a plug if one goes out, or a light switch, or fix plumbing. You've all heard about me fixing plumbing. So today we're going to go through my tool bag. This is just the basics of what is in my household tool bag. I'm going to talk about what's in there and why. And it's at my feet right now. So you're going to hear me jiggling around on this podcast because I'm pulling out tools. There's a live stream on YouTube so people can see them. So tool number 1. It's the hammer. This is a great self-defense tool. The claw pulls out nails on the back and you hammer in nails, but it's also a thing that you can use to bang other things out of your way that are in the way. You know, like car windows or other people's, never mind, I'm not going to go down that road. But anyway, seriously, the hammer, I think everybody should have one in their house. I have this exact one. I don't know why. I don't recognize it. I'm not sure how it got in my tool bag. This is not the hammer I originally bought. Back in the day when I realized I needed tools, I went to Harbor Freight and I spent $100 on all like just basic screwdriver set and hammer and all this other stuff. And yeah, one of those things was a hammer that I think has probably fallen apart. My thought was I buy Harbor Freight tools to get them. And then when things break, I replace them with better ones. So hammer, first and foremost, super important. Really good at like when you're doing demolition, getting, you know, like if you have a stud in the way in a wall, you can like bang on it with your hammer. It really helps. Okay, next tool. This is my Makita. Is this Makita? Yeah, it's Makita Cordless Drill. Okay. And it's, you know, I have the screwdriver too. It's battery operated. It's got a pretty small battery. Like a lot of the people I know use DeWalt and they have these giant batteries. This one, it's little and lightweight. It's 12 volt, 1.5 amp hours. Not as powerful as a lot of people would like. Has a little light that turns on when you hit that button. But what I found with the heavier DeWalts with the giant batteries that last forever is my right arm, when I'm screwing things in over my head or whatever, it's like my wrist gets really sore. And so I went to the store specifically looking for something that was a little bit less powerful, less weighty. And this thing, like the day I brought this into my life and no longer had to run extension cords to screw stuff in, it made me so happy. And, you know, screwing things in and out by hand, pain in the butt, right? So that's the next thing. This is the electrical baggie. I have a baggie of things. I have wire cutters. I have this awesome little pen tool that you click a button, and if you put it near a wire that's live, it goes beep. Super important. And then I have some wire nuts in there and some like screws for screwing in face plates and fixtures and stuff. What's not in this bag that should be in this bag is the multimeter. Never fear, it just means somebody borrowed the multimeter. This measures like the voltage, so you can start tracking down if power is going from one thing to the next. I have to say, I depend on the BP pen a lot more than I use this thing, but this measures how much is going to like a plug or something. So if I'm noticing that I have a light that's dim all the time, I can say, okay, is the plug broken? Maybe there's not enough wattage coming through there. Sometimes I even remember how to use this tool, but I use it so rarely that usually what happens when I'm about to use the tool is I get on the phone with my dad or another friend and say, can you remind me what setting I need to put this on to measure? Luckily, I have good friends and I don't have to YouTube that every single time, but I have it as part of my electrical collection. And that whole thing is usually in a Ziploc baggie in my bag. But what happens when people start rummaging through my bag is things fall out of Ziploc baggies and or get wandered off with and not put back. And then, of course, Nicole gets grumpy. Oh, yeah, lineman tool here. This is also supposed to be in the electrical bag. This is when you are twisting wires together, this little tool works really well so that you have a nice tight twist on those and they're solid. The next one is a set of wire cutters. These I can use for electrical wiring, though my stripping tool also cuts wire. I use this to cut goat horns out of fencing a lot more than I'd like to admit. And, every so often when you're somewhere and you have a metal binding of some sort, this cuts through that great. Always good to have that. Okay, channel lock. I have several different sizes of channel locks. I won't talk about all of them. The reason I have these is that I'm constantly dealing with plumbing issues. And those things, you can set them to the size of the bolt or nut that you're trying to unscrew and really torque on them. And it may be in a situation where my pipe wrench, which is gigantic, can't fit. So I use those things all the time. I also use them, ladies and gentlemen, to tighten the hose on just when you screw the hose into the hose spigot, because I never can seem to get it tight enough with my hand. And so I want it tightened down so that it's not dripping when the hose is on. I use them all the time for that, for replacing shower heads, stuff like that. It is what it is. Okay, next, I have this Craftsman set of a Hex Wrench thingies. So for some reason, the world has decided that screws don't just have a plus or a flat thingy on top, and they have a variety of different shapes, which causes me woe. But this is a hexagonal thing that you can put into a hexagonal hole, hexagonal, right? And unscrew and screw in things. What I use this for most often is tightening furniture legs and stuff, because that's where I find those kinds of screws or bolts that need to be tightened. And this is not my favorite one. I'm not sure why this is in my tool bag, because I have a different one that comes where they fold out kind of like a folding knife. And Allen wrenches. Yeah, you're right. That is the name for it. Somebody on somebody on the live chat just said those are Allen wrenches. That is true. Anyway, it folds out like a folding knife and then you never lose them. This one, it's like to get the one I want, I have to dump this bag of Allen wrenches out. And it drives me nuts because then I have to fit them all back in. Not my favorite. I will find my other one. Okay. This is super important. I have several sizes of flathead screwdrivers and Phillips head screwdrivers. You never know when you're going to need one of these, but you can almost 100% guarantee when you need one of it, you will find 6 of the other one in my tool bag and not the one you need. This has caused me to say lots of bad words over the years. I know that I have 50% of, because like the ones I'm holding up for YouTube are kind of small. So for the smaller screws, I have like 4 or 5 sizes of flathead screwdrivers and 4 or 5 sizes of Phillips head screwdrivers in there. And of course, the ones I grabbed, I just were in my hand. But, ooh, they, as I said, it's just guaranteed somebody has borrowed these and walked off with them, and it will be like 6 flathead screwdrivers and no Phillips when I need a Phillip. And it's sort of like Murphy's Law of the tool bag. However, right now on this particular thing, I happened to grab them, and of course, this is one I hardly ever use. It's like the tiniest, longest little flathead screwdriver ever. Okay, next thing. This one's really important. This is the staple gun, and I'm like super. It's kind of weird. Okay, if I hit that keyboard with my microphone, guys, what we're going to end up with is the recording stops and I say bad words and get mad. So this is my staple gun. I use the staple gun for all sorts of stuff, hanging lights, or like my outdoor shower has fabric for visual screening. So if somebody's in there, nobody can see them. And for some reason, every time we have a windstorm lately, that screening comes down. So I put the screening back up with it. I like to have the staple gun in my tool bag where I can find it so I don't have to run down the hill. Okay, next I'm putting my tool bag on my lap, because the juggling of the mic and the tool bag is probably making all sorts of fun noises on the podcast. Ha ha ha. Ratcheting screwdriver with interchangeable screw heads for the win, says Hat from online. Yeah, I used to have one of those. I think I have its little body still. Okay, more channel locks. Lots of different sizes of channel locks. This one's great. The pipe wrench. I have 2 pipe wrenches, one of which my daddy gave to me when I was like 19. He's like, you need a pipe wrench, Nicole. It's like he knew I was going to have plumbing problems later in life. So I have 2 of these so that you can put one on either side of something and hold the pipe steady while unscrewing the thing that you need to unscrew. Even with that, I have had to call in help to break fittings loose with longer handled ones. For some reason, I have 2 staple guns in there. I have this. What is this? It's a wrench. I forget, the kind that has the little thing that opens it and closes it. Hopefully somebody online will tell me what kind of wrench this is. It's a 10-inch wrench. Anyway, this I use because the channel locks have channels that lock the wrench into place at a certain size. This one's more like variable, so you can really tighten it down on a bolt the right way. I know, like some of you are like screaming at the podcast right now. Okay. I have a random pipe cleaning metal brush. It's round. So you put this in the metal, and if you've just cut a pipe, you can get the burrs off of it. It also works on PVC. Do you see a theme here, guys, of what I'm usually working on? More screwdrivers. I'm not going to go. Here. My Allen wrench foldy outy tool. I love this thing. It's my favorite. And then I have a pipe cutting tool because, as I've said, 99% of the time what I'm doing, it seems like lately, is plumbing. And that goes for my rentals as well. I have a cutting tool, a utility knife that's foldable. My utility knife is red. The reason my utility knife is red is I had a blue one just like this, and it folds in half, kind of like a jackknife thingy or a pocket knife. And I had a blue one, and every man in the entire world has a blue one. So when we're working on projects together, it gets to the point where we're like, whose utilities knife is where, right? Mine is now red. I know which one's mine. They won't get all upset that I grabbed theirs. I have the world's tiniest pipe wrench, plumbing. I have a toothbrush-shaped wire brush, crescent wrench. That one I was trying to describe to you. That's right. I could not remember the word for crescent wrench. It's kind of a podcast fail right now. I have a screwdriver that is intended for putting different size screw bits in, like drill. You could use it on your drill, or you could use it on the screwdriver. But I use it because half the time when I'm undoing a bolt, it's this size. The head is it has a hexagonal, and this usually fits that. And so I just leave it in my tool bag. Right now I'm just digging through. I have a random $1 flashlight that I got at Walmart, and or maybe for free from Harbor Freight. I don't know. It's really handy to have an extra flashlight around, because if the one in your pocket is not in your pocket, like mine isn't right now, you still have one in your tool bag. If the batteries go out, you don't have to run back up to your car. Okay, I have the set of Stanley super tiny screwdrivers that you use for fixing glasses. And the reason I have this is half the time the multimeter has been left on in my bag and I got to change the batteries. And these are the right size to unscrew the cover where the batteries go on that. Plus, it's kind of funny. I run into the need all the time on my electronics and when I am maintaining my coffee roaster, which I have to pull apart about once a month now to clean out the insides. I end up needing tiny little screwdrivers. This one, so I've had different sets. This particular Stanley comes with a case, and it has a flap that snaps down and holds them all in so they don't fall out all over my tool bag, which then means I can have the one I want. Oh, I can't believe this is in there. A tape measure. I use this to measure the things. I use this to measure. I was certain that as part of this podcast, I was going to have to heartily be out the people who've been using my tool bag because there is no tape measure in there, because I know they wandered off with it working on my hydro system and didn't put it back. But I forgot that 2 is 1 and 1 is none, and my super secret, hard to find tiny tape measure is in there. So this is just a 12-foot tape measure. It's something I've learned about why some of my carpentry is so bad, besides the fact I basically don't know what I'm doing and I'm usually trying things for the first time. And the first time you do something, it's kind of And the second time it gets a little better because you learn. And the third time you're getting pretty good at it. I hung a drywall ceiling in Portland, Oregon 4 times until I got it right. That's the thing you need to know, that you need to, if you get into doing carpentry projects, be prepared to do it more than one time. And it's okay. If your budget's so tight you can't do it more than one time and you need it to be perfect, get somebody to help you. But if not, just know you may be buying, drywall more than once, or putting it up and down because you didn't realize you should do everything in the ceiling before you hang the ceiling. Guys, this is what I used to call a channel lock. It's a tool that you clamp down on on whatever you need to hold. It's got rounded teeth and not flat. And then on the back, it has a thing you screw in, don't screw in. I'm so glad I'm live streaming this because I'm getting all the right tool names. It's a Vise Grip. So a Vise Grip allows me to hang on to things when my hands won't. Today in the kitchen, by the way, Nighthawk went grocery shopping, and on the list was hot sauce. Like, after having 20 different bottles of hot sauce in my kitchen for the last, 9 years, I was actually out of hot sauce. So he got one, and then he wanted to use it on his eggs for lunch, and he could not open it to pull out the thing. And so they ended up using, I think, Vise Grips to be able to hold on to the lid of this thing and unscrew it, because nobody could get it with their hands. So sometimes it's not even for a carpentry project that you do it. I have a second set of wire cutters, all sorts of screwdrivers. Let me look. I'm going to do one last look. I think that's pretty. I have extra staples for the staple gun. Random hose for a toilet in case I need to replace a toilet, because as we said, plumbing. One putty knife. You never are so sad as when you have gotten to the duplex and you just need to scrape, because this can be used as a putty knife. It's like only an inch wide or so, 1.5 inches. To scrape something off of something, and nope, you can't scrape it off. I have replacement blades for my utility knife. I actually have a faceplate cover for the electrical bag, and pretty much everything else, guys. I have a few extra types of screws that I might need. A stubby screwdriver. I didn't even know what a stubby screwdriver was until I had to work on the pipes under my house, and I needed to unscrew a hose clamp. And then I had about 1/2 inch or a 2-inch clearance. This thing's like 2 inches tall. I have a flat head and a Phillips of one of these. So I have had to use so many weird specialized tools that I have it. Everything else is Vise Grips and more screwdrivers and channel locks. So that is what is in my tool bag. So what's missing from my tool bag? First thing I see online is a saw ? That's a great question. There is not a saw in my tool bag. I used to have a tiny hack saw that was about it had 3 inches of blade, and it's not in there anymore because it broke. The blade broke, and it wasn't one that takes replacement very much. And the reason I had that, drum roll, is because I had to cut pipes. So sometimes I would, use my clamp down pipe cutter that's best for PVC and PEX, and other times I'd have to cut through, some sort of copper piping, and that hacksaw one worked a lot better. That's not in there. Other times I need saws, though. Usually I'm using electrical saws, so I don't hand saw lumber. I use a skill saw or a table saw or something else, or if I'm destroying stuff, whatever that thing is, a Sawzall is what I call it. I think that's a brand. So that's another thing. And then everything else I tend to bring extra. So I see a comment that zip ties are good. Yeah, zip ties, drill bits. What's right next to my tool bag are 3 different collections of drill bits, either for screwdrivers or for drilling holes. And then zip ties, I usually just keep a handful of those in my car, but that's actually absolutely a brilliant thing to have. And then I used to have duct tape in there, but there is no duct tape in there. And that's not because somebody took it out. I was really expecting the tape measure not to be in there. So I'm a little amused that my backup tape measure is there. I don't know where my actual tape measure is, but a tape measure is one of those things that every time you go to Harbor Freight and they have a free tape measure, I get the free tape measure. If I have a choice between tape measure and something else, I just get the tape measure because it seems like they're either getting destroyed through abuse or they're getting lost or walked off with somewhere. And so it's like someday my house might be organized that I can keep track of just one tape measure. Right now, it's like there's a tape measure in the kitchen, there's a tape measure in the car, there's a tape measure in my tool bag, there's a random missing tape measure that's bigger. And, that's all the things. So that's everything in my tool bag. What do you hear that you think might be missing? What would you put in your tool bag? I think the best way to organize your tool bag is think about, what will I really need to use on a day-to-day basis? Some of you may not have the high number of plumbing demands that I have, or you may not want to ever do electrical work, in which case you don't need the baggie of electrical stuff, or you don't need you're going to want some basic plumbing, a way to cut pipe, a way to tighten and loosen things. I usually actually have plumber's tape in there, and that's not in there, which has me concerned. So I'm going to have to go see where that went. I'm sure that is sitting outside by the hydro system because we've been screwing in plastic parts and trying to make sure they don't leak because you don't want to pump all your water out. But that's, something that I usually have in my tool bag that now that I see I don't have it, I'm going to put this stuff all back together and make sure I have it, because it's springtime, which means it's time to get called back to doing maintenance on some of my rental properties. And I'm going to be sad if I have to go all the way to Home Depot to buy some Teflon tape because I needed to redo a faucet or something. Anyway, hope you enjoyed today's show. If you do like the show and want to support the work I'm doing here at Living Free in Tennessee, you can do it in 2 ways. One, get your coffee at hollowroast.com. We have gone from a per pound plus shipping model to shipping is included in the price. So as long as you buy 2 pounds or more, you get free shipping. That's over at hollowroast.com. And the other way you can support the show is to become a member at livingfreeintennessee.com. Just go there and click on membership, and you get free access at the premium level to webinars and a quarterly meeting of the other premium members. If the basic membership is the level you prefer, that's 2 webinars a year, except for all of April's were free to everybody. Anyway, with that, guys, go out, make it a great week. Yeah, carpenter's pencil will be great. There used to be one in there, and I think Tactical hated it so much he took it out of my tool bag. So I'm totally going to go get another one of those so he can hate my carpenter's pencil. That's a good one. I like the suggestion of just getting all pink tools so everybody knows they're mine. The thing is, I already have my tools, and I like the desk right here. There's like all the tools. This is a really good impetus for me to reorganize my tool bag. because usually I have all the screwdrivers on the outside in pockets, and on one side I have like the screwdrivers that are Phillips. On the other side I have the flathead. Oh, this is funny. Here, Eric says T square. Oh, you do square things. Now you know why my finished carpentry is not that great. And Hat says a friend of hers painted them pink. That's hilarious. Okay, guys, thanks for joining in. I'm going to stop the live stream now. I thought that was kind of a fun, random, not usual Wednesday topic. I will go through my power tools. What my power tools are called. Apparently, I didn't know what a Vise Grip was today, or it's kind of funny when you're on a podcast. Sometimes like words leave me. All I could think of was channel lock when I was looking, at the crescent wrench. I don't know why. Channel lock was on the brain today. So thanks for joining in. And yeah, Eric keeps several different bags for different purposes. I need to do that too. Actually, I need to have like my plumbing one and my electrical one and then my just normal utility one. I'm kind of thinking of redoing the bag. I've had everything in one giant super heavy bag, which is a pain in the butt to move around for me. So every time Harbor Freight has little bags for cheap, I get another little bag, and I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be the electrical little bag, and then the bag will be, because plumbing is like my world these days. Anyway, I'm sure I'll talk to you guys online soon.